Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Mindset U. This is episode 70. I'm Jason Moreno, aka Punchline J. We got Moses Santos, aka Moody Mo, and we got Rances, aka Mr. Roboto. Today's episode, we're talking about coaching because you guys are coaches, and I wouldn't necessarily call me a coach, but I am starting to train a young kid at the gym who I adore greatly, and I want to pick you guys' brains about how to become a better coach. I feel like it's a lot. You're always learning. You're always trying to navigate with your clients and stuff like that. Everybody's different. You can't just do the same approach for everybody. It doesn't work like that. At least I don't believe. Maybe you guys feel differently. But I wanted to start with you, Mo. Wait, first and foremost, don't forget to like, subscribe, and find us anywhere that you can find podcasts, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. If there's any and VitaProject.com, of course. If there's any other place that I'm not mentioning, you guys feel free to say it, but that's all the ones off the top of my head. But back to my question, and it's for you, Mo. Mo, you're a coach in multiple facets. But I wanted to pick your brain about your time as a basketball coach, because you coached several young men in basketball, and I could see how hard that can be, especially the younger kids and stuff like that. So I just wanted to pick your brain about how you went about catering to different kids' needs and stuff like that, and how to bring them together as a team.
That's a great question. First, I think like what I would like to do is just to give some context to the audience is like, what are you dealing with right now? And then how does my experience and Rance's experience as a coach really connect to that? So that way it just makes creates more cohesiveness in the storyline.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. So I'm starting to train a younger gentleman at the boxing gym. I work with him every Sunday morning. It's kind of a passion project. He always looked up to me at the gym and stuff like that. He always asked me questions with his mom. So I just pretty much said, hey, if you're here at 7:00 on Sunday morning, I'll be here and I'll work with you. So it all started with me sending him YouTube videos of different boxing techniques and stuff like that, things that I want them to work on. So it would start with like the first one I sent him was like a video of Canelo doing creative punches and stuff like that. He's a really strong kid. He doesn't realize how strong he is. So I was hoping that using somebody who like Canelo, who, I mean, if you're a boxing fan, you look up to Canelo kind of thing. But what Canelo's really good at is setting up his power kind of thing. So I have him look at this video of Canelo doing these creative punches, and it's working. But at the same time, he still hits really, really fucking hard, and he doesn't know how to control his strength yet. No matter how many times like we stop it and like, hey, take a little bit off of it, like let's just touch kind of thing. Like he'll touch for a second and then it's right back into the same thing. So I'm really trying to find a way to approach it where he's still getting that work of knowing what it's like to be in a situation where he has to get hit, but at the same time, that how he needs to control himself in these situations and stuff like that. So that's where I'm at right now.
So my first question to that is, what is the definition of control? What does that look like with this kid? Like, what does out of control look like?
It's just
like, how do you know he's out of control?
I know he's out of control because regardless of how many times I'm like, hey, this is just touching. We're just touching right now. Like literally just patty cake. We're just patty caking. I want you to pick your shots and stuff like that. He'll do it for like 30 seconds. And then if he gets frustrated, he just resorts back to like the strong guy, his power kind of thing. So it's just trying to like get him to like dial it back a little bit. But that's what I mean when I say that he's a little bit out of control with that. Just because like with me, it's not, I know how to deal with it. But when it comes time to get him to work with other people, I know it's going to be a hard thing. It's already been a hard thing, even with people that he knows, because the minute that he cracks them, he has a very strong right hand that they come back looking for blood kind of thing. And he One, I mean, not to get too like inside baseball about this kid's life. He does have an eye condition, so that's why his mom's kind of nervous about him sparring with other people and stuff like that.
Mm.
So she doesn't want to take him, wanted to take like a lot of abuse to the head. But at the same time,
Can I just highlight something right now?
yeah,
For the audience, what's happening here right away is, if you guys notice, Moses asked a few questions, right? Those questions got Jay to start thinking and exploring the subject matter from a different perspective. And that precisely is what the whole topic is, coaching, right?
That's what coaching is, yeah.
you know, so I've been trying to like really think about like different ways. So like, so after practice today, I was like, hey, look, like we did like 2 rounds and I noticed that like he was a little bit on edge today. So I was like, hey, no gloves. No gloves. We're literally going to touch. We're going to touch, you know, and that got him to like calm down a little bit. But I feel like the minute that the gloves go back on, it's kind of like that instinct, that like fight or flight instinct kicks in for him. And I'm really trying to find a way to get him to like not resort back to old ways.
So what I think is actually happening, actually I'll ask another question.
Okay.
What questions are you asking him?
Well, ask him like what's going through his mind when we're sparring and stuff like that. I was like, and I always tell him like, you know that it's control, like you know that I'm not here to hurt you, kind of thing. And I asked him like, do you think that like in order to be fast you have to be powerful? So I asked him like a whole bunch of different questions that like is you swinging for the fences? Is it because like you feel like that's the only way you can land something on me? Or
what does he say?
He kind of, he's real quiet. So it's hard to get like a good read sometimes. So sometimes she's like, no, I'm just not really focused today. Or sometimes he's like, yeah, no, I get it. Yeah. And then he'll snap out of it for a second. And then like the next round, it's right back to the same thing.
So I think, first of all, I'm going like your original question asking me about my experience in coaching and basketball and all of that. It has changed a lot from the time that I coached in New York City and won the 2 city championships to now. My philosophy in coaching has shifted just because of all the experience and knowledge that I've gotten working with Rances and doing what we do at Vita Project. So I can't say that whatever I did before is necessarily what I would do now. What I think is the same, that has never changed, is that to be a good coach, you have to care. Like that's the first thing. Like no matter what, there's got to be care.
Yeah.
You have to care about the individual's growth. You have to care about the individual's understanding about their emotions and how they feel. And I think that's something that has stayed consistent in my approach to coaching and teaching. Now, and Rances can speak more on this, but what we define as coaching and what we define as teaching has really shifted in the past, several years. So to me, teaching is the distilling complex information into a very simple concept that somebody can understand. Coaching is the application of that very simple concept. So most people might be good at teaching. Somebody can articulate something and frame something in a way where it's very easy to understand, but they may not necessarily have the skills in getting somebody to apply these things. That's where coaching comes into play. Somebody can be a great coach, get people to do things, but they may not be able to explain things very well. So in order to get through to this kid, or any kid for that matter, you kind of need both. You have to be, it's not being great at one, I believe. I think it's about being decent at both. And the first thing you need is care. And then the second thing you need is data. And the only way that you get data and information is by asking really good questions. So the reason I asked you what was his response was to understand what data you collected.
Yeah.
If the response is, well, he doesn't really talk much, he doesn't say much, then to me, the work that you need to do is get better at collecting the data. Okay. What is he perceiving? What is he understanding?
Yeah.
What are the answers he's given to you? Because that's going to give you a lot of information on your approach, your next method, your next approach onto like, how do I get him to hold back the punches? So to me, it's like, if he's getting nervous or frustrated, right? It's like, what does that feel like? What is that? What does that do in your body?
Yeah.
Right. Like, what does that make you want to do? What are you sensing? Like, do you feel shaky? Do you feel your heart rate going up? Like, do you feel like your mouth getting dry? Like, what is it?
Yeah.
Right. Because that allows him to get a better understanding of what he's experiencing. And then you can deal with that kind of emotion in that place.
I think that's a really good a point to make. Yeah, I've been trying to really get into like what he's thinking about and stuff like that. And it's a lot of just, if I ask him like does it feel like you're breathing heavy? Like, is that like, do you feel like you have like anxiety sometimes? And he's like, yeah. And then I'm like, so like explain, like what does that feel like? He's like, I breathe heavy and I just throw hard punches. And I'm like, all right, buddy, but like you want to, let's talk about like where does that come from, kind of thing. And I don't know if he has that in him to explain that yet, as if he understands it himself, I guess. Because he's like 15 years old.
So if I can chime in on here and this like concept, like what Moises. Okay. What Moises is saying with we call them discovery questions or facilitating questions, is if it's not asking someone to do a presentation, it's not asking, hey, tell me what is it that you're going through, and they're going to be able to collect their thoughts and explain to you. Because the reality is that inside someone's mind and brain, there are so many concepts that have been instilled through experiences that the person doesn't even understand that is different than you. So they're not going to be able to get you to understand what they're seeing unless they practice that skill. And that's the teaching that Moses was talking, that delivery of information. So to get someone to ask a question and then get someone to articulate it to yourself, to you, you're asking that person to already have that talent to articulate. So with the questioning, what you want to do is literally walk them holding their hands step by step in uncovering each little thing and explaining. Because as a coach, your goal is to put on the lens. Like if I'm coaching you, Jay, my goal is to put on the lens of Jay, to see the world through Jay's eyes. All right. Once I'm seeing the world through my creation of Jay's eyes, now I can start trying things and see how you react for that. And that's also more data where I can keep making adjustments. But it's that. It's not the presentation factor. It's the discovery, exploration idea from the coach themselves.
No, I think that's a really good thing. That's going to be my homework for this week. So I can really work on that next Sunday when I see him. I think I'm going to start sending him I think what I'm also going to do is let him know like what my journey was like in the beginning, to let him know, that we all start off at a certain place, and I felt real vulnerable. Like even today, like even with my training today, I felt a little off today. I was at the gym for like 6 hours yesterday. I was at the gym at 7. We had our meeting at 10. We finished at 11?
Yeah.
Yesterday. I stayed there till 2. And then I was back there at 7 today, and I left at 11:30 today, and I did 12 rounds today, but I felt like shit. Not because my body felt weird. Just mentally, I was like, man, I really don't feel like getting punched today, kind of thing. But I did it anyway, just to get the reps in, kind of thing. And I think I want to start being vulnerable with him and letting him know when I feel those kind of feelings, that I'm not, that I'm not not that I'm perfect at all, but not that this kid thinks that, this guy who shows up every fucking Saturday to work with him and stuff like that. Like, I'm always happy to get punched in the face kind of thing. Like, there are days where I feel like, I get it kind of thing. And I think I want to work on being more open with him about my feelings going into it as I train for this fight coming up. So let him know that's normal. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think vulnerability helps. I mean, going back to like where I think coaches and teachers can get really good at making more impact is understanding their approach and their methodology and why they're doing that thing. So something that's really helped me out, I guess, in the past year, and it was one of the coaches from the education consultant company that I'm contracted by. So this company, they give you a coach to become a better coach, right? So one time I had a conversation with a teacher. I was supposed to recorded it, give it to my coach. He listens to it and then gives me feedback. And there was just, I guess the teacher got a little frustrated, and I reacted, or not reacted, but responded in whatever way I thought best. And he asked me one question, and this was a really great question that kind of changed my approach to coaching. It was like, your next question that you asked in this difficult moment, was it to center the client or was it to center yourself? Right. And this was huge because a lot of the times when you're teaching something or coaching something and it's not going the way that you expect it to go, right? This kid is punching, he's going light, and then he starts punching hard again. So then your next question or your next method or your next statement is to, what is it? Is it to center yourself or is it to center that kid? Right. And that's really huge, because if it's like you getting frustrated that like this kid isn't able to understand you or move forward or get the thing that you're trying to explain, is your next statement because you want to feel better about what's actually happening, or do you want the kid to feel better about it?
I could answer that, because it's not so much taking the hits from the kid, because he's still, it's a matter of like watching him like visually get worked up, and then he expends all of his energy within like the first, he'll go good, and then it's just throwing everything as hard as he possibly can, and then for the last minute of the round, he's and he's drooling, and you know what I mean. So I'm trying to get him to collect himself, so that he's not putting himself in danger when it comes time to working with other people.
So what does that mean for you as a coach when you see him get into that state, that outcome?
It makes me I start to feel bad for him in a sense. And it's not like he's not doing what I'm saying. It's just like, how can I help him get over this emotional hump? Because I could see it taking a toll on him. Like, I can see like his eyes get watery sometimes, and I want to be like, yo, who are you fighting right now? Like, who in your head are you swinging at right now? And it's just like I just want to try and get him to control his emotions when he's in there. And I think like that it's hard to say that, because I don't necessarily know him like that and stuff like that. But I could just see a young kid get visibly upset, and then I see what happens like when you fight upset and stuff like that. He's breathing super hard for no reason. It's like, I'm like, Bubby, I'm working with you. I'm letting you hit me. Like, I'm literally shelling up. I'm like, listen, go to the head, go to the body, change it up, throw combinations and stuff like that. And I could see him get frustrated when he feels like he's not doing it right. Or if I stop him and I'm like, hey, but don't use your arms, use your waist kind of thing. And I feel like I could see him get frustrated sometimes when we stop him and I correct him kind of thing. But I'm trying to do it super gentle. I'm not doing it like, you fucking idiot. Like, why aren't you doing it right? Like, you're doing it wrong again. I was like, no, bud, come on, let's do it the way that we were talking about it. Like, remember, I was like, let's work in it like this kind of thing. And
what do you know about him?
I just know that he's a kid from the gym that his mom comes in and stuff like that. And like, and from what he tells me, he's a real quiet kid. He doesn't have a lot of friends. And I sit there and I talk to him. He'll be at the gym from 7 till like 10:30. And he'll watch me spar. And whenever I'm not sparring, I'm sitting next to him and I'm trying to explain to him the stuff that I'm feeling, the stuff that I'm trying to do, that I see and the person that I'm sparring with and stuff like that. So I try to break it down for him, and I make it a point to always include him in all the sparring, even though he's not necessarily able to spar with the other guys, kind of thing. So I'm trying to break that ice and ask him like, how's school? How was your week? How was this? Like what, that kind of stuff. He's like, it's good, it's cool, And
So
I try to ask like icebreaker questions, like trying to get him to open up a little bit.
So I just want to kind of highlight Moses mentioned about like for us teaching and coaching, and when we actually have taught other people the process of teaching and coaching. We had a center where we literally put all the coaches through the training to understand these concepts. And just like the backstory behind that, like Moses was a teacher himself, right? And for me, when Moses came along, he helped me with a lot of the teaching components, right? So like further supporting the idea of like teaching and coaching can kind of be completely separate in many ways. And then when you merge them together, that's when you make magic. And the teaching aspect, if you think of it like Moses mentioned, is like the articulation of information, being able to make something that or present something that someone can understand. That's a big aspect of it, where how you're able to frame things for different people, right? And that's you going back to your point earlier. They're with different people, they're going to understand differently, you're going to speak differently, you're going to emphasize differently, so on and so forth. So understanding that about the person is like, it's important to understand who's your audience, right?
Yeah.
But all of that goes into the delivery of information. And then for me in the coaching side, it becomes a bit more awareness of the emotional side of how the person, again, like I said before, how the person is perceiving things and how their emotional reactions are affecting their ability to take that information and put it into action, right?
Yeah.
So with all of that in coaching, you are doing less delivering of information and more asking a question to get that model of the way that person sees, like, okay, I have a hypothesis. If I say this to Jay will receive it this way, right? So now that's teaching, right?
Yeah.
In coaching, I'm going to be a little bit more like, my question here, I'm expecting Jay to respond this way. So I ask this question, Jay responds that way. Okay, my assumption was correct. Or I have a full-on assumption like, oh, like you were mentioning, school is tough and so on and so forth. Then I lead forward straight up, like, this is the assumption that I have, and so on and so forth. And then have the person get the option to be like, yes, you're right, or no, that's not the case at all. Either way, that's the information that's helping you further kind of understand their perception. Because now when you have this model of the person in your mind, right, that you're able to kind of run practices through, where it's like, oh, I have this model of Jay in my head, and when I talk to Jay, he's going to respond this way to this, and so on and so forth. Now I can kind of run simulations of the different formats to get Jay to work towards something. Yeah. Which that something has to be a thing that, and this is for me from the moral standpoint of coaching, has to be a thing that is what you want, right? So now, in order for me to understand what you want, I need to understand you very well and need to understand what you're trying to achieve. And then with all of that, now I'm able to frame the way I'm teaching. I'm able to frame the way I'm coaching. And then we're working towards a thing together. And also when we're deviating from that path, I'm able to say, hey, we're off the path here. What's going on? Because we both agreed this is where we're trying to get to. Right. And now we are like, oh, yeah, let's adjust.
No, I think that's really helpful. I will say this though, like when it comes to like throwing like pad work and stuff like that, and, like hitting the heavy bag, he understands everything. Like all the stuff that we go through, he gets it there. It's just when it comes time to get in the ring and apply it when somebody else is trying to hit him, that sometimes it just goes out the window, kind of thing. So it's just like one of those like trying to figure out like we all know fighting is hard. It's not easy. There's a lot that goes into it. A lot of people don't like conflict and stuff like that. It's like I get that part, but it's just like trying to find that gap of like trying to get how it connects so well when we're outside that ring to get it to connect in there.
So going back to that point of like coaching becomes a more emotional part, right? And with coaching there's a lot more training that happens, right, where you can understand the concept and so on and so forth, and now you put it into practice and everything goes out the window. Throw your hands up in the air and run, right? Because the emotions take over. So in coaching you understand emotions in that way. So then when the emotions is a challenge, like for example, okay, he can behave under these stress levels, right? Now, once these stress levels exceed this, that means that his ability to manage his emotional self is underneath what is necessary to control in this moment, right? So when I get punched in the face, Jay tells me when I get punched in the face, I need to lift my right arm to block. Okay, got it. Then everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face.
I will say this, going off where Rances kind of stopped before the incident. He did talk about the emotion and the application. And Jay, do you mind if I give you some direct feedback based off the time that you had coached me? You remember when we were at the center, you had trained me one time. You were high as hell when you came in, but
of course.
Yeah. So it's
first off, not stoned when I go there in the mornings.
Yeah. No, yeah. I know that this was skewed. But one thing I did remember, and I spoke to Rances about this when we were talking about coaching. I'm like, Jay, you talk too much. Jay talks too much when you're coaching. So when you're coaching, right, it's about training, right? For me, a teacher that talks too much or a coach that talks too much is you're already losing the person automatically. In coaching, it's really just about like, all right, we're doing this. Hit here, 1, 2, 1, 2. All right, change this. Keep going. Right. The second he gets frustrated is like, relax. Okay, again, go. Like it's nonstop, and it's literally training the person's emotions while they're doing something. The moment that someone stops and tries to give a breakdown of something that you're trying to get someone to apply, you can lose the person very easily.
Fair enough.
Right? And the only time that I believe that you go and you break something down is if the person is completely off. Like completely fucking left field and is resistant towards your coaching or the pattern. Yeah, you have to interrupt the pattern. So that's the only time. And when teaching, my belief is if you can't explain something in less than 5 minutes, then you do not know that concept. You can't because when I see a teacher and the teacher is trying to explain a methodology in the front of the classroom, and this person is trying to teach a lesson, and it takes them 30 minutes to explain something to a class, that means this person is either trying to control the class by consuming all of the time and being in front of the classroom, right? Meaning that the moment that they let the class go to work, all hell breaks loose. So the way to control that is to stay in front of the class and talk. Or they have no idea what they're saying. So to me, one of the things that I experienced with you, I think that you explain things well, but I think that you over-explain. At least in that one very small sample size of your coaching at a very like almost 2 years ago. So
that was a very early stage. Yeah.
But
no idea what the fuck I was doing.
And you were high. So
it's also you. So it's hard. It's hard training a friend or showing a friend how to do something when I'm hitting them.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also that, like, it's also a friend, right? The dynamics of the relationship,
Mhm.
right? You could also, you were high, you were first time like really coaching a coach, right? Like all
Yeah.
those variables play a
Oh,
role.
of course.
But I would say, just like, if it's any direct feedback from what I can remember, is like
Yeah.
less is more.
Oh, I try to keep the stuff simple. It's literally
Yeah.
like throw a 1-2, add a hook to it, turn your shoulders, kind
Mhm.
of thing. It's
Yeah.
it's a lot of that. The talking comes afterwards.
Yeah. I
Kind
would
of
say
thing.
talk less, ask more questions, get the
Yeah.
kid to talk as much as possible. That's
No,
the goal always for me.
I think that's a great thing that I'm going to definitely work on coming up this Sunday. Yeah.
And then when it goes into the questions side, there's like we created an entire system on like the questionings
Mm-hmm.
and the way to frame the questions. So, for example, a lot of times the why questions create kind of defensiveness, right? So steering away from why question and more so what about the last punch that you received to the face made you swing with that left hook?
Yeah.
Like, because now you're more curious as to what about it? What
Mm-hmm.
about, like, I guess, I don't know, I got scared. Like, it creates more versus why did you throw that left hook? It's like,
Yeah.
well, because I'm supposed to. Like,
It feels accusatory when you do the why.
Yeah, it
kinda
almost feels
thing.
rhetorical too. Yeah.
Yeah.
You said.
Yeah. No, I get that. No, that's definitely good feedback that I'm definitely going to apply going forward. Sorry, my energy's fucking low. I'm drained today. Everything hurts.
Yeah,
My whole body hurts today. Like
no punchlines
everything.
today, huh?
no punchline today.
No, yeah, the punchlines are very, very low today.
You gave them all out of the ring.
Oh, I literally, like, you know what it is? I spent the past 2 days. I worked out for 10 hours in the past 2 days, and it's been a lot of fucking boxing. Yeah.
So just to give you a little bit more of that, because like when all the stuff that Mo was kind of diving into when he was like asking you questions, it's also to understand that you're looking for the problems together with the client, whoever you're
Mhm.
coaching. You're looking for the problem with them, right? And what I mean by that is that when you think you found the problem, you're going to want to solve the problem, right? The key factor is you're doing that with them. So when they go, oh, I know what's happening, this, right?
Mhm.
Now you're kind of guiding them to solve their own problems. And that, in fact, is what coaching is. It's not giving the answers,
True.
right? So another thing that that I'll give you directly from what you're saying is like, okay, the kid says he understands and so on and so forth. And then once pressure reaches a certain point, he starts responding with his previous behaviors.
Mhm.
So then maybe it's simply training that response, right? So, you grab a noodle and you're smacking them on the side of the head and you're like, keep punching at 60%. Bang, bang, bang. Keep smacking them, smack them a little harder. Oh, that one felt a little harder. You're not staying at 60, right? So now you start bringing awareness to that micro little adjustment. And then by bringing awareness, you're shining light and for him to become aware of the problems. Like, oh, I increased too much. I see what it feels like.
Yeah.
And now you're holding up that mirror for him in that way.
Yeah, I think when it comes to kids, it's really more about getting them to do stuff, and then I mean, based off what you said, just like really make them feel uncomfortable with the questions, like not in the sense like asking like weird questions, but just like pushing him to actually give answers. Right, where he can't give those one word answers. It's like he has to kind of explain something, and when he does explain it, it's like if it's like, all right, what did you see there? What the like Rances said, like what is the key question or how I think really get somebody to explain something like how would you do this? How would you go about doing this? Right? How would you throw this? Right? And getting their insight into how they see things. And not necessarily giving like a wrong or right answer. It's more like, okay, all right, let's work with that. See what happens. And then just punch him in the face and be like, did that work? No, it didn't. All right.
No, great.
Yeah. All right. So What do you think about that now?
There's been a few of those situations where I'm like, why? I was like, is there a reason why you keep your hand so low when we're in punching range? He's like, oh, because I think I could throw faster from here. And then I just throw a punch at him. I'm like, was it faster? He goes, no. I'm like, I was gonna stop doing that.
But that to me, that's great effective coaching. For me, like I can understand what he says. I feel like when my hands are lower, I can throw faster.
Yeah.
Right. It's easier for
and
me.
I tell him like it makes sense when you're on a heavy bag until somebody's swinging at you and you zig when you should have zagged, and then you get caught with something, and then I feel bad because I didn't mean to hit the kid straight in the fucking nose and he's bleeding now. That's another thing where it's like in a sport where it's like you don't want to hurt somebody, but you still have to kind of hurt them. Like I feel terrible. Like he gets nosebleeds really easily. I could look at him the wrong way, and sometimes his nose bleeds. So for like the first like 2 weeks, I was like, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. And this mom like, he bleeds all the time. Don't worry about it. I'm like, oh man, thank God. Oh man, thank God. I didn't want to be the reason why a 15-year-old has a fucking nosebleed on a Sunday morning right now.
What I will say to you though is you should probably get coaching insurance just to cover your ass.
Yeah, right.
And I would also make a separate entity so that it's your coaching. You sign a waiver. Does he have a waiver?
Well, he signs a waiver to the gym.
And are you a coach at the gym?
No, but I'm not technically his coach. I just really just took on the role of teaching him stuff every Sunday. Yeah. It's more so from that aspect where she's not paying me anything.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, no, like there's no money involved. Like she's always like, oh, like what can I bring you? And I'm like, Mama, if you could bring me like a liter of water, that's all I need, kind of thing.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I don't want any money for it. I just really enjoy the fact that he loves boxing, and this is like his little escape for him.
Got it.
Kind of thing. So like that, it's my passion project with him, kind of thing.
Got it.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's just one of those things.
Yeah. So just to summarize, like what we talked about, first of all, coaching and teaching are kind of two separate entities. Understanding the individual or your audience as a whole really is going to impact the way you teach, the way you bring information, the storytelling, all of that stuff is directed to the audience themselves. Understanding the individual's emotional and their perception of the world, their mental model of the world. That's where coaching helps guide how you react, right? So how you apply that information. So how do you build yourself emotionally to react with that information? So when you combine those two things, you're able to create a understanding for yourself of the person on how they receive, and you're able to guide them by giving them experiences and testing those theories out. And with that, you're working together again to help them uncover their answers. You're more so pointing them in the right direction as opposed to telling them where they need to be.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I've been rewatching Ted Lasso from the beginning now, and I've been like writing little notes down. I'm like, believe. Like, and all these other like little things that I love from like the different coaches on the show and stuff like that. Because I know it's fake and all, but you still learn a few valuable lessons from it.
No, the show's well researched and
it's well researched. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That whole belief thing, my dad told me that from dude, when I started playing ball, 5 years old, he's like, first thing, no matter what, you always have to believe.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck. When Ted Lasso came out, put believe, I was like, damn, my dad was right.
That's the most Puerto Rican you ever sounded. Say Ted Lasso again.
Ted Lasso.
You're like, Ted Lasso? Mira, Ted Lasso.
All right, that was pretty funny, man. It's good.
I'm getting my energy back. slowly coming back.
Good.
I still got some fight in me, Coach.
I was a little afraid this podcast would be boring. Jay didn't come out with any punchlines, man.
No, you just gotta wait till the end, guys. I'm sorry. All right. So on that note, Once again, this is Mindset U. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, VitaProject.com. Oh, wait, one last question, basketball related. Do you guys still call it suicides, or do you have to call it something else? No, that's a great question. It's just like you can't call it, sitting Indian style anymore. It's crisscross applesauce because it's racially insensitive, apparently.
I don't think the censorship has made it to
the basketball
courts.
Yeah.
I don't think basketball world cares too much, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one basketball player ends it all.
I can't believe you can't just say words now. This is retarded.
We're starting to sound like our parents. Can't say the N-word anymore. What do you mean?